Her Highness Princess Märtha Louise is unlikely to ever inherit the Norwegian throne, and she has already publicly announced at least twice that she is giving up her royal title. Frankly speaking, she understood from childhood that her own brother, Crown Prince Haakon, would perfectly cope with the role of the future monarch of Norway, and she needed to look for another field for self-realization. Still, in the age of women's emancipation, even princesses sometimes want to go against ancient traditions and find their calling. And today, 53-year-old Märtha Louise seems to have found the true meaning of life and met a man who supports her in all her aspirations. Yes, the daughter of the Queen of Norway has already had one divorce, but we all learn from our mistakes, don't we? Märtha Louise was born on September 22, 1971, and became the eldest child in the family of Her Majesty Queen Sonja and His Majesty King Harald V. Already in 1973, the girl had a brother, Haakon, who, by the fact of his birth, put an end to Märtha Louise's illusory hope of ever ascending the throne. However, it is unlikely that then the thoughts of a 2-year-old girl were occupied by ambitious plans to win the crown. Neither in childhood nor in adolescence, the princess was not very interested in her parents' work. In principle, she was not attracted to the royal life. As she later admitted in an interview with Bunte, "Many children dream of being princesses so that their parents would be kings, and I dreamed of the opposite, of normal parents." The princess and her brother spent their childhood at the Skaugum estate near Oslo. Their parents did not spoil the heirs too much, so that the children would learn to be independent, get acquainted with the life that ordinary guys lead. Märtha Louise and Haakon attended the municipal kindergarten, the local elementary school, and stayed for electives with classmates. For example, the princess sang in the school choir and played the flute, and for many years she was engaged in folk dancing in an amateur group at the Norwegian Museum of Cultural History. But Märtha Louise had another hobby that was always considered characteristic of aristocratic circles. She loved horse racing to the core. Still, no matter how much we deny our genes, sooner or later they make themselves felt. At the insistence of her parents, the princess paid great attention to languages in her studies. This allowed her to successfully pass the entrance tests to Oxford University. However, Märtha Louise realized very quickly that English literature fascinated her relatively less than equestrian sports. She dropped out of one of the most prestigious educational institutions in the world and began training at Arena UK, improving her riding skills. 2 years later, the princess returned to her homeland and decided to link her life to medicine, graduating from one of the departments of the University College in Oslo and continuing her academic practice in Maastricht, the Netherlands. In December 1997, she was officially qualified as a physiotherapist. However, even in those days, Märtha Louise's first place was still her career as a member of the national equestrian team. She has achieved some success in this field, but in 2000 she felt it was time to complete this stage. Her Highness said goodbye to equestrian performances and concentrated on medical practice. But a year later, serious changes took place in her life again, which changed her life priorities. Of course, even before Princess Märtha Louise reached adulthood, her parents were thinking about the fate of their daughter. With such a high family status, the task of finding a husband for the heiress seemed quite real and even simple. In addition, Märtha Louise literally blossomed in her youth. From a little prankster in a sports uniform, she turned into a real lady. But the parents did not take into account that the girl's firm character remained with her. She was invited to social receptions and balls, introduced to the aristocrats, who were delighted only by the crystal blue eyes of the princess. But she remained indifferent to potential suitors. Moreover, she immediately decided to declare her conditions and told her parents, "My future husband, firstly, must be an interesting person, and secondly, we must fall in love with each other." Arguing with Märtha Louise was useless, and getting in her way was fraught with trouble. Therefore, the parents preferred to step aside, watching with concern as their daughter rejected one suitor after another. As the years passed, the royal family began to lose hope that any man would be able to melt the heart of the wayward princess. And suddenly, out of the blue, Ari Behn appeared, a Norwegian writer and screenwriter who became famous for his collection of short stories under the ironic title Trist som fan, sad as hell. A special bond immediately developed between him and the princess, and in 2001, Ari proposed to Märtha Louise. She gave her consent without hesitation. On May 24, 2002, they said their wedding vows at Nidaros Cathedral in Trondheim. "You are the light that overcomes the darkness," Ari said that day, looking into the eyes of his bride. "You are not afraid of the truth. You saw me from the inside and helped me discover myself. You are a wonderful woman. Otherwise, it is impossible to explain the miracle that you agreed to become my wife." For his sake, the princess took a serious step. She gave up her royal privileges, including the title Her Highness, and an annual allowance of $1 million. And I must say that their union was truly happy. A year after the wedding, Märtha Louise gave birth to a daughter, Maud Angelica. Subsequently, the girl had two more sisters, Leah Isadora and Emma Tallulah. It seemed that nothing could destroy this family idol. However, over time, the active Märtha Louise realized that she was not one of those women who would give up her career for the sake of maternal responsibilities. She needed to find a cause with which she could bring good into the world. Physiotherapy ceased to seem like a promising and interesting field to her, and then the princess decided to engage in cultural activities, namely, the dissemination of Norwegian fairy tales to a wide audience. Märtha Louise agreed with the recording studio to create a corresponding project, in which she herself took a direct part. It was she who voiced the folktales. The project turned out to be really successful, both culturally and commercially. In addition, the princess began to compose stories herself. In 2002, together with her husband, she released a collection of stories about their life before marriage. And in 2004, a fairy tale about a young prince was published, which Märtha Louise wrote on her own. And in 2007, the princess made a big announcement. She launched an educational platform for children, which was named A Start Education. But it was by no means an ordinary comprehensive school. In our courses, you will have the opportunity to learn how to discover your inner source of truth and resume your natural contact with angels and the divine universe, the Educational Center's website stated. The result will depend on your own approach and openness. However, the founder of the project did not hide the fact that she herself has been communicating with angels since childhood and can foresee the future with their help. Immediately after the opening of the non-standard school, Märtha Louise was criticized by both local and international media. But the princess was completely indifferent to the caustic comments of journalists. Most importantly, she was supported by her beloved husband. "Your gift is unique," he told his wife when she was about to lose heart. "Thanks to him, you help people." As a result, the press representatives gave up and left the heiress of Norway's most famous family alone. After the passions subsided, Märtha Louise reviewed her relationship with the media. She also worked on her educational project, wrote books, participated in charity initiatives, raised children. But she reduced communication with journalists to a minimum. She and her husband led a rather closed life from the public eye, and their names were never mentioned in the scandals of the gossip columns. Everyone thought that their family could be described with one simple phrase: happiness loves silence. But in 2016, after 14 years of marriage, Märtha Louise and Ari Behn suddenly announced their separation. Their divorce was the first in the modern history of the Norwegian royal family. We can only guess at the reasons for the couple's decision. However, the former spouses managed to maintain a good relationship, which they maintained until December 25, 2019, when Ari tragically passed away. Märtha Louise's life has not become less intense after the divorce. She also traveled the world, studied new spiritual practices, and attended important sports and charity events. And soon she met a special person, in whom, in her own words, she immediately felt a kindred spirit. Märtha Louise's chosen one was one of the most famous spiritual mentors of celebrities, 45-year-old Durek. Among his clients were such Hollywood stars as Gwyneth Paltrow, Rosario Dawson, and Nina Dobrev. According to the Daily Mail, Märtha Louise also once took private lessons from Durek, but over time their relationship reached a new level. Durek believes that he was a king in a previous life, and he and Princess Märtha met in previous lives and were husband and wife many times, a source told the publication. In late spring, the Hollywood shaman flew to Oslo to pick up his beloved to go on a tour of 5 cities in Norway and Denmark, telling people about their love and spiritual practices. After that, they continued to conduct seminars, but in a web format. However, the name of these classes attracted the special attention of journalists: The Shaman and the Princess, which is why Märtha Louise was accused of using her regalia, which she abandoned back in 2002, for commercial purposes. Sometime later, Märtha Louise stated that during a discussion with her family, it was decided that she would no longer use the title of princess in a business context. "We have come to the conclusion that I will use the title of princess only when I represent the royal family and perform representative duties at home and abroad," she commented. From now on, Märtha Louise presents herself in her commercial projects only by her first name, without any additional regalia. And to finally separate the life of Princess Märtha Louise and the life of Coach Märtha Louise, she even created an additional page on social networks, which she named at martha.louise.intuitive. Anyway, a title is far from the most important thing in Märtha Louise's life. She has long proved by her actions that she paves her own path without regard for family ties. And now her life journey continues, this time with the Shaman Durek. Despite their mutual vows of love, the couple's future marriage was in doubt for many. Fans and haters of the Norwegian princess were united in the opinion that this was a temporary affair, and Märtha Louise and Durek were unlikely to reach the altar. The bride's royal family obviously hoped for the same thing. However, love or the desire to go against the system, or maybe both, won out. On August 30th, 2024, 3-day wedding celebrations kicked off, and the Hollywood shaman officially became the husband of the Princess of Norway.